Green flag drops. We are live for another NASCAR Life in the Fast Lane right here on WagerTalk TV. Another short track, semi-Virginia track. It's right on the border of Tennessee and Virginia, and that's Bristol Motor Speedway this Saturday night. Once again, we're coming off Darlington. We're coming off Richmond last week, another short track. And now it's the third and final race of the first round of the playoffs. 4 drivers will be eliminated after this weekend, and we will be down to 12 for the final 7 races of the season. I'm Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, joined as always by my co-host Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, and Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. And Rocky, before we get to Bristol for this weekend, let's recap Richmond. You know, they're 2 of the only 3 tracks that are under a mile. Richmond, 3/4 mile, Bristol, a half mile, along with Martinsville. But they're always different types of tracks, but I still think Richmond could carry over a little bit. So let's get the Rocky recap for Richmond, what you learned from last Saturday night under the lights.
All right. Well, Martin Truex Jr. stepped it up a notch, came home with the win in Richmond this past weekend, secured his spot in the next round. He actually started second in the race. He got black flagged on lap 1 as he made it to the start-finish line ahead of Denny Hamlin, who was his teammate and the pole sitter for the race. And you know, the announcer says, you know, Truex was getting upset about it and stuff, and the announcer's like, he should know he can't beat the pole sitter to the start-finish line first lap of the race. And he got black flagged, but he made up for it, come back and won the race. He served his penalty and rebounded, came back and won it. So great job by Truex and his team to do that. Hamlin finished second. Christopher Bell was third. Chase Elliott was fourth. Joey Lowe rounded out the top 5. In the 6th spot was Kyle Larson. Ross Chastain with another solid finish in 7th. Kevin Harvick was 8th. Kyle Busch in 9th. Ryan Blaney finished in the 10th position. Denny Hamlin won stage 1 and stage 2 of that race. And after the second race of the playoffs, Denny Hamlin sits in 1st. Martin Truex Jr. 2nd. Kyle Larson is in 3rd. And all 3 of those drivers are now locked into the next round. Hamlin and Truex moving on by winning races. And Larson is now locked in on points, regardless of how he does here in Bristol this weekend. Joey Logano is 4th. Ryan Blaney sits in 5th. Kevin Harvick 6th. Chase Elliott 7th. Christopher Bell 8th. Brad Keselowski's 9th. Kyle Busch sits in the 10th spot. Eric Almirola is in 11th. Alex Bowman and Kurt Busch are currently tied for the final 12th position. Tyler Reddick's in 14th. He's 5 points out of 12th. William Byron's in 15th, 18 points back. And I hate to see that because William Byron has had an incredible season. For him not to make the first cut is going to be tough. Michael McDowell is in 16th, and we kind of all expected that. He sits 38 points back of that final 12th position. So we're moving on to Bristol. Should be a fun race under the lights here this weekend.
Yeah, and once again, this playoff points and positioning is important because, as I mentioned, this is the final cutoff race for drivers. The bottom 4 out of the 16 playoff drivers are dropped after this week. So guys like McDowell obviously have to win, and William Byron's probably been one of the 4 or 5 best drivers on the circuit this year. As you said, Rocky is basically in a must-win situation. So it's something to keep an eye on when we transition into Bristol here in a moment. Just to once again recap Richmond, I joked about how a couple years ago I was doing a radio show and I said Gibbs, any order. Well, it happened again, Andy Lang. Richmond, once again, was Gibbs. This time it's Christopher Bell, though, instead of Kyle Busch. But Kyle Busch was probably one of the 4 fastest cars, could have very well been up there as well. We talk a lot about how Darlington looks like it's transferring to Richmond more, and I'm starting to see that the last couple of shows we've done for these tracks. Truex dominated the May race at Darlington, didn't do as much last 2 weeks ago, but was pretty strong here. Once again, he's dominated races here before as well at Richmond. Andy, it was an eventless race. And, I've said over the years, I've gone to Richmond for over 20 years. I used to see a ton of crashes. Michael Waltrip hit the wall as I was walking by it in turn 3 about 15 years ago, caught on fire. I'll never forget that. I don't know. It's just a clean race now. It's really kind of a boring race, even though it's an action track. And I don't know, man. I don't envy you. I don't envy you trying to find a Stenhouse Award here. I think, as Rocky said, it would have definitely been Truex Jr. getting black flagged on before the race starts. but he comes back and wins it. So I don't know who we give it to. Any thoughts there, Andy? I don't want to take a pass, but it was a tough one.
Yeah, it's a phrase we can use in the gambling industry. Don't force it. So we didn't have one this week. If he hadn't have won the race, like if he would have finished in second, yeah, I'd be all over him. But can you imagine how good Truex would be if he wouldn't get a penalty? It's just like, It's like if Shaq had hit his free throws, he'd be the best ever, but he couldn't get out of the second lap. I will defend him a little bit. It was pretty obvious Hamlin spun the tires, and Hamlin was the first one to get on the gas. This was not like Truex really did something egregious. Like Hamlin definitely got on the gas first, slowed down, and Truex got ahead of him. But I guess the rules are rules. But I will tell you, I am not going to be anywhere near Martin Truex because this is a short track, and you get a penalty, you're not one lap down. You're multiple laps down. That's the problem with these short tracks. So if he pulls one of these speeding in the pits or loose tire, or he'll invent some penalty this week to get penalized by. This isn't where you just come out and you can get the lucky dog and all of a sudden you're back on the lead lap. This is probably the biggest getting penalized at Bristol is probably the harshest penalty. So because of that, I can't get behind him this week. He's probably going to be fast. He's probably one of the fastest cars. He gets one of those penalties, he's in trouble. But a pretty impressive performance. If this team and him can clean it up, he's probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite.
Yeah, and Martin Truex Jr. is a guy, though, in the first decade of his career was not good on short tracks, and he's won like over half of the short track races the last couple of years now. Yet this isn't his best short track. Richmond is much better for him. Bristol, he's only like 30th in average finish. I think he's only been top 20 in half those races. The last 6, he has no top 10s, if I'm not mistaken. So this hasn't been his good track. Let's keep in mind as we head into Bristol here that the spring race was the dirt track. We got to toss that. At least I'm tossing it. I'll ask you guys what you're doing with that. But Rocky, lead us off with Bristol here. It's a half mile. There's 2 half-mile tracks, Martinsville and Bristol. Richmond's a 3/4. Richmond has normal banking. It races more like an intermediate track, in my opinion. Martinsville is a flat track, no banking half mile. Bristol is a huge banked. It's banked like the 2-mile restrictor tracks, and it's a half mile. So I don't really look at Martinsville much, to be honest, when I'm handicapping this. I don't look at Richmond much. Rocky, how do you handicap it? I hate to say it's a one-off, but it is a unique track. It's a half-mile high-banked speedway, and certain drivers have definitely dominated here, Rocky.
Yeah, it could be a one-off for sure. You could classify Martinsville into a short track and Bristol together, I guess. Some people do that. Some don't because of the banking. It's way different. But I'll be looking at track history, of course, and I'll be looking at momentum as well. And one driver I'm looking at here is a driver that's already locked in to the next round, Denny Hamlin. He does have 2 wins here, 9 top 5 finishes, 14 top 10s, and 30 races here in Bristol. Average finish is 14.7 in this track. Like I said, he's locked into the playoffs, but I still feel like he's going to go for the win here. He's the hottest driver to pass 3 races overall. He has 1 win, 2 top 10s, and a very good average finish of 5.3. So I believe Hamlin is definitely a driver to look out for this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, Hamlin, like you said, is locked into the playoffs. So I think that's a very important handicapping factor that's unique to this race. It was unique last week as well. Let's keep in mind, Andy, Hamlin had locked himself in last week already with the win at Darlington. And yes, he doesn't win the race last week, but he wins stages 1 and 2 and finishes second. So obviously he was strong last week with that under his belt already. Truex and Hamlin are locked in this week. We just talked about Truex not being great here recently. Andy, how are you attacking Bristol? Who's someone you're looking at?
There, one track I think you can look at, you'll see a lot of similarities with the same guys as Phoenix. Phoenix is much bigger. It does have some banking, and a lot of times you can see some correlations there. That's about it for me when I'm looking at tracks. So I'm going to go with Kurt Busch. He is right on the bubble. And this has just been a year where him and his team have just responded when they needed it. They needed the win, and they got in a really good position to get a win. And what did they do? They raced a phenomenal race to beat his brother, Kyle. And in the last 4 races at Bristol, minus the dirt, he's got the second best average finish behind his brother. So I got to look at a guy, a veteran who really has nothing to lose. I mean, he's racing free. This is a track that he's shown that he can succeed at. He's got no pressure. He's got no weight on his shoulders. He can go out there. He can take some chances. He's had success at this track. And I'm not going to bet against Kurt Busch. If anything, I'm going to bet on him. I bet we can get some really good odds in some matchups. So I'll be a Kurt Busch fan this weekend.
Yeah, once again, he basically has to win to stay alive, and he's been top 10 for the last 6 starts here, the 4th best average overall finish after actually 3rd best active. Clint Boyer, guys, has the 2nd best average finish over the last few years. He's been very strong here, but he will not be racing. So, yeah, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson in just 4 races, and then Kurt Busch. So if you really want to break it down, Andy, over the last 6 races, guys that have run the last 6, Kurt Busch is the 2nd best driver after his brother Kyle Busch average finish. So that's pretty interesting stuff. Rocky, I'll throw it over to you. You gave us an H. Is there any other drivers you're looking at here? Are the H hats already been nominated in full effect? It's been validated. Who else are you looking at here in Bristol this week?
Yeah, I agree with Andy with the Kurt Busch pick there. Very solid at this track. And so is his brother, which I'm going to mention right here, Kyle Busch. And he's been probably the best driver at this track. If you throw out like Jeff Gordon, I know he was strong back in the day. Rusty Wallace was good back in his day. But Kyle Busch, very good here. 8 wins, 14 top 5s, 19 top 10s, and 31 races here. Average finish is 12.7 at this track, which is 2nd best among all active drivers. He has led 2,592 laps in Bristol, which is more than double the 2nd place guy, which is Kevin Harvick. And over the past 3 years here, he has 2 wins, 5 top 5s, 5 top 10s in those 6 races, an average finish of 5.3, which is the best among all drivers. And he has the best driver rating here over the past 3 years. Kyle Busch will run well here this weekend. Wouldn't expect anything worse than the top 5 here.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you could say, well, Kyle Busch is, kind of on the cut of making the playoffs. He should be okay, but does he take it easy? But I don't really think you can play it safe, Andy, at Bristol. It's a half mile. It's fast. You can't really hang back in the middle of the pack like you could at a 1.5 mile intermediate. And yeah, you're right, Rocky. Kyle Busch has been the most dominant driver in decades now on this track. His numbers are insane, and it's a very unique track once again. So guys that do well here usually do well each year. And there's no practice, no qualifying, and of course there was no previous race because it was a dirt track in the spring. So that also should benefit a guy like Busch who's good here out of the gate. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. Who's somebody else you're looking at here at Bristol this Saturday night?
Well, we've got a clear-cut top 4 as the best playoff drivers right now in NASCAR. And I'm going to take so we have Hamlin, we have Truex and Larson, and then, of course, the 4th best driver in the playoffs, of course, being the one that we all predicted, Ross Chastain, finished 3rd and 7th. He's finished 3rd and 7th the last 2 playoff races. Why are we doubting this guy this week? Nothing would surprise me from him right now. He is legit outraced most of the playoff drivers. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know why now the team has just hit their stride, but I bet on Ross Chastain several times throughout the year. He was good. Hasn't been this good. I can't doubt Ross Chastain. And would it surprise you if he finished top 5 again this week? It wouldn't for me. I love Ross Chastain. I love what he's doing. He's not scared to race up there. And quite frankly, he's just been better than some of the big names. I'll take a good finish from Ross Chastain again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a fluke. This is a guy that we talked about on the road courses earlier this year. He was good on those. And, of course, Richmond, a 3/4 mile, Darlington, somewhat of a short track. And then this is definitely a short track, a half mile. So he's been good on these type of tracks. He's been good on road courses. So it would not surprise me at all. And once again, we're not necessarily saying he's going to win the race, but like Andy said, you get him at plus money on top 5s and top 10s. I'm seeing it plus 130 right now in the top 10 at DraftKings. So you're getting plus money there. And then, of course, head-to-head matchups. And then all of important, the mid-price fantasy guys. You got to have 6 guys for all of those fantasy lineups. You got to have guys like Ross Chastain in that 7,000 range usually. Would not surprise me. He's in great current form. And, yeah, it is funny. You see all the playoff guys and then Ross Chastain, top 10 every week. Rocky, I mentioned the H-hat. You gave us Hamlin. You gave us Kyle Busch. You gave us 2 Gibbs guys. You're going to stick Gibbs Or are you going to go back to the H-chat in full effect this week at Bristol?
Let's go back to the H-chat, full effect. Kevin Harvick, he has 3 wins here, 13 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and 40 races here in Bristol. Average finish is 13.4 at this track. He's run better lately. He still don't have a win, though, but he's moved from 16 to 6th in the playoff standings. And I feel like he's going to have another solid run here to move on to the next round. He's the second hottest driver over the past 3 races, only behind Hamlin. 2 top 10s, average finish of 9.3. And let's keep in mind, Harvick won this race last year. We can say that he don't run good at Bristol, but I mean, the numbers aren't bad at all. He's won here 3 times. So I wouldn't be surprised if Harvick didn't have another solid run in him this weekend.
Yeah, I told you I was off the H train, off the H hat when he didn't run well at Michigan after winning both last year. But then in Darlington, a track he's been very good. He finished 5th, was 5th in both stages, 1 and 2. You'd mentioned going in, Rocky, that he'd actually been one of the top 4 drivers over the past month, which shocked me even. And then last week at Richmond, 9-8, finished 9th, 10th, and finished 8th. So he got better as that race went also. So, yeah, he's definitely a top 10 contender. I'm not sure I'd call for the win, but I think he's definitely a top 5, top 10. And he's about 20-some points above the cut right now. But once again, Andy, I don't know if you can play it safe at Bristol. I'm not sure that's even possible, so it might not be a factor. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. That's Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. I'm, of course, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com as well. And, Andy, before we get to some long shots play against guys, let's finish out some play-on drivers here for Bristol.
Well, Ric Flair is famous for so many sayings, but one of his sayings is, in order to be the man, you've got to beat the man. And let's face it, the champion is still Chase Elliott. Yeah. Chase Elliott, he styled and profiled all the way up to 7th place in the playoff standings last week. And he's not going down without a fight. And don't forget, we got a road course-esque type track in the next stage. So if he makes it through, it's fair to say he's going to be fighting for a win and going to be the odds-on favorite to win that road course. So if he makes it through with a good finish, you can almost push him through to stage 3. And the last 2 races here at Bristol, he has the best average running position under green flag. So he doesn't have the best finishing position because he ran into trouble in the spring race in 2020. But while on the lead lap, while the green flag was out, he ran the best in those last 2 races in 2020 at 4.4. All he's got to do is maintain a level like that and stay out of trouble. I would expect he would. If he gets close enough to the front, he can push for the win, but he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to force the action. He just needs a really good, solid finish. He's shown he can run good under green flag. I would expect a solid finish from Chase Elliott. I wouldn't bet him to win. But I think a top 10 is and a top 5 fight would be well within reason for him this week.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, last year, the 2 races at Bristol on the asphalt or the concrete, whatever they have there, he won 3 of the 4 stages. He finished first in 3 of the 4 stages. So the 7th and 22nd place finish is extremely misleading. And this is another type. It's a short track. We talked about Chastain, good on road courses. Does it transfer to Bristol? We know Elliott's a great road course racer. So one thing is he does struggle at Richmond. It just shows, once again, I think Richmond is not a good comparison to this because he struggles at Richmond, but he's been good at Bristol. So that's another reason I would not look at Richmond. Blaney, I think, has been decent here at Bristol, if I'm not mistaken. He's been terrible at Richmond for the most part. So once again, last week's Richmond race I would not use as a short track comparison to Bristol, as we're pointing out. Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com, at Rocketman Sports on Twitter. He has some great free NASCAR information on Twitter every week at Rocketman Sports. Rocky, let's look at a long shot. Maybe someone, could be in that top 10, top 5, top 10, kind of like a Chastain. Who's somebody you're looking at as a long shot this week at Bristol?
I think you got to look at Tyler Reddick this weekend. I seen him at 28-1 odds to win. I don't expect him to win the race, of course, but as far as like a top 10 finish, it is a good possibility. He hasn't won here. He does have 1 top 5 finishes in 2 races here in Bristol. One of those finishes was 4th place, so a very solid run there. He's 5 points out of the 12th and final playoff spot after this race, so he needs a solid run here to move on to the next round of the playoffs. Wouldn't shock me any if Tyler Reddick didn't have a solid top 10 run here this weekend.
Yeah, and you get him at plus 125. We said Chastain is plus 130, Reddick plus $1.25 at DraftKings for a top 10 finish. And he's a guy that was really good in the Truck Series. Kyle Busch was really good and still is good in the Truck Series. Kyle Larson, he's done well at Bristol Truck Series. I feel like that transfers a little bit at Bristol for some reason. So Reddick would make sense if that's the case. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com. Who's someone you're looking as a long shot? Can use them in head-to-heads, obviously. Top 10s as we're talking. Also those mid-tier fantasy guys. You mentioned Chastain already. Give us another long shot you might be looking at.
Ryan Preece. He has raced here 4 times, and he has improved his finish every single time. So here's his 4 finishes. First time he raced here, 25th, then 18th, then 12th, then 9th. So I'm seeing a guy that's progressively gotten better at this track. And those are 3 top 20 finishes in a row. You can grab him at plus 160 right now for a top 20 finish. Not predicting top 10s, but if you're in daily fantasy, if you're in seasonal fantasy, you need a really inexpensive driver. Ryan Preece, he could sneak up and get you a really, really good finish here at a very low price.
Yeah, when you go Ross Chastain in your top 3 driver assessments, you got to come even stronger for your long shot, I guess. You did that with Ryan Preece, the mighty 37. I think there's a baked beans car occasionally in the 37. And plus $1.60, Andy, on a top 20 at DraftKings. A lot of books don't have top 20s, but they do. And just to put that in perspective, we talked about Reddick and Chastain, $1.30, $1.25 top 10. They're both minus 300 top 20. And it was funny you bring that up because I was looking at it earlier. I was like, boy, they take that value away pretty fast, don't they? He's 10-1. Ryan Preece, that is 10-1 to be a top 10 and still plus money, as you said, plus $1.60 top 20. Like where you're going with that. This is a guy that's been in the top 20 and is getting better. And we're getting plus money. By the way, Andy's going to have a free play here in a moment. Another plus a top 20 free play here. So he's hitting those hard this week. We're going to get to free plays in just a moment here on the show. Before we do so, Rocky, give me a play against guy. We've given a lot of play on guys. These play against guys can be just as powerful as far as head-to-head matchups especially, but also maybe, if you're looking at your fantasy lineup, this is someone you want to leave off the card this week at Bristol.
Yeah, I got to mention Martin Truex Jr. here. This could be his worst track on the circuit. He has no wins, 2 top 5 finishes, 3 top 10s, and 30 races here in Bristol. Average finish is 20.7 at this track over the past 3 years here. No wins, no top 5s, no top 10s. In those 6 races, an average finish of 22.3 during that time. So he's going backwards, actually. He's locked into the playoffs already after a win last week. Don't see him running well here. We could get some good value as he starts on the pole Saturday night. And so he's going to be matched up with some of the decent drivers, and I look for him to go straight to the back, pretty much. Not to the back, but you know what I'm saying, back into double-digit territory. And also he's finished 20th or worse here in 13 of the past 15 races. So I'm going to look to fade Martin Truex Jr. this weekend.
Yeah, it's amazing because he wasn't good on short tracks. He's won like half of them the last couple of years, but this is not the short track that he's been winning on. And once again, shows how unique it is compared to Martinsville and Richmond. So once again, don't fall for the short track stats because it doesn't transfer to this one. Andy, you mentioned Phoenix. Of course, that's a flat track, so that's the one big difference, even though it's a shorter 1 mile. Dover, a 1 mile concrete bank track. That's one I meant to mention earlier. Maybe we look at Dover, but I think Truex has actually been decent there. So then again, maybe that doesn't transfer. It's a very unique track at Bristol. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, the prop master, football, baseball, hockey, and basketball when they resume, MMA as well, and of course NASCAR and a little Formula One when he feels up to it at WagerTalk.com. Andy's got a huge lineup this week in a prop action, though, for the NFL. You don't want to miss it. College football as well. Major League Baseball. But give us a play against guy in NASCAR this week at Bristol, Andy, someone you don't want to touch.
To also touch on Martin Truex, remember when they covered the track in dirt, he was the most excited about it. He's like, we've been so bad at Bristol, anything they do to change it.
Yeah.
Like he was the only guy excited about it.
Finished 19th.
Anything they do to change, anything they can do to change this, I'll be good with. So, all right,
Andy, real quick on that though, he did lead the most laps in that dirt race. He led 126. He led twice as many as anybody else. And he still finished 19th. So, yeah, it's a good point.
Fade. We mentioned William Byron earlier. I'm going to go with his teammate Alex Bowman. Just feels like the shine is off of these two Hendricks drivers. It's too bad because it's taken away from a great year. So he's had two really bad finishes in 2020 at Bristol. His running position was terrible. Under green flag on the lead lap, he ran in 19th position, and he's just fallen apart in the playoffs. He had the wreck, sometimes the momentum works for you, and sometimes it works against you. Hendricks was on fire in the middle, and it just feels like Larson has continued the momentum. Chase Elliott's in pretty decent shape, but for whatever reason, it's just not working out for Byron and Bowman right now. I just don't like supporting some of these guys that enter the playoffs when they're not in good momentum and good form. And wouldn't surprise me if Bowman doesn't see the next round, which, like Rocky said, it's a shame if they don't. But I can't get behind Bowman. In fact, I'll be looking to fade him at head-to-heads.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence, or as you like to say, Andy, a coinkadink. But I don't think it's a coincidence that that the veteran guys are stepping it up. I was going to say Rocky, but I had to pick on Andy.
I say that all the time.
You do. I hear you say it all the time. Hashtag coinkadink. But, Rocky, Hamlin doesn't win all season. He wins the first playoff race. And he even said it was go time. He said that. And you look at guys like Bowman and Byron, very talented, multiple wins this year, but they've never been in go time. And it'll be interesting to see if your man Harvick, your other H-man, can step up this week in go time as well. By the way, Andy mentions Kurt Busch earlier as a play on, now a play against Bowman. They are tied for 12th, exactly 2,053 points. Bowman, I believe, is ahead because he has 3 wins to 1. I assume that's the tiebreaker. So that's big there. Tyler Reddick, who we've mentioned as a play on, is just 5 points behind those two guys for that 12th spot. So I think we might see some shuffling. Reddick and Busch moving up, Bowman falling out this week if that's the case. Rocky Atkinson, sportsmemo.com, football, baseball best bets this weekend, NASCAR as well at sportsmemo.com. And Rocky, let's give them a little sample, a free matchup maybe that you're looking at.
All right. Well, Andy and I are going to bump heads on this one a little bit. But I'm going to play on a guy that's got to have a solid run to make the playoffs. Tyler Reddick over Ross Chastain. Andy mentioned Ross in his top 3, and there's a lot of good about Ross. His momentum right now is crazy. He's running great, but he hasn't run good here at this track, which is very important in my handicapping. He's just absolutely struggled here. He has no wins, no top 5s, no top 10s in 4 races here in Bristol. Average finish is 30th at this track. His best finish here is 26th, while his worst finish is 39th. So not a good track for him. Reddick, I mentioned earlier, no wins. He did have the 1 top 5 finish where he finished 4th in 2 races here in Bristol. Like you just mentioned, Steve, he's 5 points out of that final 12th playoff spot after Bristol to move on in the playoffs. So he needs a solid run here. So I'm looking to play on Tyler Reddick to finish ahead of Ross Chastain here this weekend.
And once again, we're doing this show as we head into the weekend. A lot of head-to-head matchups aren't available. These are ones we're predicting will be. So if you don't find odds, on Friday or Saturday, folks, keep an eye out for Saturday evening. A lot of these will pop up. And Rocky will have his official best bets for Saturday night's race on sportsmemo.com on Saturday. He likes Reddick over Chastain. By the way, I'm seeing right now at a lot of books, Almirola is pick 'em against Chastain. But Reddick is a slight dog to Alex Bowman, who we just mentioned, a play on versus a play against. So something to keep an eye on. I do see that in one of the books. So some actionable info as we head into Saturday's race. Andy Lang, we talked about those top 20 odds that you saw at DraftKings earlier. You gave us a nice plus money on Ryan Preece, the baked beans man. Give us another top 20 free play. I like these top 20s. We hadn't talked much about them this year.
Yeah. Also, I got to throw on how mad are you if you're Austin Dillon, who wrecked in the last 2 races, did make in the playoffs, and has finished ahead of Tyler Reddick in both the playoff races. So you got to be kicking yourself. Yeah, I'm going to go with the worst playoff driver left, Michael McDowell. Rocky, I can't argue with you on that play because I just love when you get a driver that's in the playoffs against somebody that is not in the playoffs. It's been over the years, it's just been a fantastic angle. I play it each and every time. So, Michael McDowell, he is still in the playoffs and very well respected in the garage. which means if he's running pretty close to the top 20, a lot of guys are not going to race him very hard. They're going to stay out of the way. It's kind of one of those unwritten rules. And I can get him at plus 180. And the fact is, finished 10th and 14th in both races in 2020. So he's 2-0 the last 2 Bristol races, finishing in the top 20. Rocky told us to fade him at Darlington, I believe. And once again, he was terrible at Darlington. This is a track he's not been terrible at. I think he can sneak into the top 20. I'm not looking for a win or even a top 10, but a plus 180, I get a playoff guy who's done it the last 2 races at this track. I think that's pretty good odds. So I'll take him to finish top 20 at plus 180.
Yeah, once again, as we all know, Michael McDowell is here because he won the first race of the year, the Daytona 500. He's been very good on restrictor plates. He's actually been pretty good on road courses. And then you look at all the other tracks, basically the intermediates, he's been terrible. It once again makes you wonder, does Bristol transfer a little bit to the road courses? We've talked about Chase Elliott being good here. Ross Chastain, and once again, we've been going back and forth on him the whole show. He's gotten more airtime than I ever expected he would get on a NASCAR Life in the Fastlane show, but he's been good on road courses, and we'll see how he does on a Bristol short track. So that would mean McDowell might be a little better than expected. By the way, he's plus 180, as Andy said. Keep in mind, Ryan Preece was only plus 160 top 20. McDowell's 11-1 for a top 10 versus 10-1 for Preece, who was out of the playoffs. And don't forget, they've got those bumpers. They know who the playoff drivers are. I think that's an automatic ticket to a top 20, and he's getting plus 180. You only got to be right like 1 out of 3 times, basically, almost to break even on that. So I think that makes a lot of sense, Andy, and this is probably the last week that Michael McDowell will be a playoff racer, so he needs to take advantage of it while he can. That's Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, the prop master. He's got a ton of NFL props lined up for this weekend. He's got his NASCAR best bets as well for Saturday night at WagerTalk.com. Follow him on Twitter at Bump Sports. Rocky Atkinson, once again, SportsMemo.com. Rocky's got football and baseball this weekend. NASCAR as well for Saturday night at SportsMemo.com. And once again, to recap the best bets here for the show, and don't forget, both of these guys will have more best bets, their personal plays this Saturday night on both sites. But Rocky likes the head-to-head matchup. He's taking Reddick, playoff driver, over Chastain, a non-playoff driver, for Rocky Atkinson, SportsMemo.com. And then Andy Lang's free play at WagerTalk.com is Michael McDowell, top 20 at plus 180, plus money for a playoff driver to finish in the top 20 for Andy Lang. Once again, I'm Steve Merril, also WagerTalk.com. I want to let you know I do have a promo code for this week, Merril79. That's 2 R's, 1 L. Merril79 gets you a full 7 days all sports for just $79 on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Use that promo code for that special discount for all my football and baseball best bets for a week. Also, check out Wager Talk TV here each and every day for football, baseball videos as well. NASCAR, of course, right here. And don't forget to subscribe. If you're not subscribed to Wager Talk TV, what are you waiting for? It's a great way to get alerts when we have updated information. If you click the bell, you get instant alerts, but make sure you're at least subscribed. Click thumbs up, like the video if you found this useful, and leave us some comments below. We all love our comments. We'd love to see your thoughts. Let me know your long shots for Bristol. Let me know your top 3. We read all the comments. I reply back as well. Like, subscribe, comment below, and check back each and every day right here on Wager Talk TV for great free information. Best of luck this weekend, guys. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you soon right here on Life in the Fastlane.
Teddy Covers is red hot, cashing 67% of his plays since the beginning of August. Get 3 days of Teddy Covers selections for only $29, discounted from $69 using coupon code TEDDY3 when checking out. That's less than $10 per day and includes any 5% big ticket releases, normally priced at $35 just by themselves. As an added bonus, anyone who purchases before Friday at midnight will get $10 in wager bucks, good toward a future Teddy Covers purchase credited to